Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we're here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3 of the Status Quo, Chapter 19, Text 20. Virhaya Pratya Drishyanta Nanayudha Mucho Naga Didvasyasho Yuta Danya Sulinyo Mukta Mordaja. O sinless Vidura, mountains discharged weapons of various kinds, and naked demonesses armed with tridents appeared with their hair hanging loose. 21. Hiraṇyākṣa Rakshobi Patyasva Ratha Kunjarai Patati Bir Utrista Himshravacho Tibhaishasa. Cruel and savage slogans were uttered by hosts of ruffian yakshas and rakshasas, who all either marched on foot or rode on horses, elephants, or chariots. 22. Pradushkrantanam mayanam asurinam vinasayat sudarshanastram bhagavan prayunto dayitam tripat. The Lord, the personal enjoyer of all sacrifices, now discharged his beloved Sudarshan, which was capable of dispersing the magical forces displayed by the demon. Purport. Even famous yogis and demons can sometimes enact very magical feats by their mystic power, but in the presence of the Sudarshan chakra, when it is let loose by the Lord, all such magical jugglery is dispersed. The instance of the quarrel between Durvasa Muni and Maharaj Ambarish is a practical example in this matter. Durvasa Muni wanted to display many magical wonders, but when the Sudarshan chakra appeared, Durvasa himself was afraid and fled to various planets for his personal protection. The Lord is described here as Tripat, which means he is the enjoyer of three kinds of sacrifices. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord confirms that he is the beneficiary and enjoyer of all sacrifices, penances, and austerities. The Lord is the enjoyer of three kinds of yajna. As further described in Bhagavad Gita, there are sacrifices of goods, sacrifices of meditation, and sacrifices of philosophical speculation. Those on the paths of Jnana, Yoga, and Karma all have to come in the end to the Supreme Lord, because Vasudeva Sarvamiti, the Supreme Lord, is the ultimate enjoyer of everything. That is the perfection of all sacrifice. 23. Siddhadite samabhavat sahasra hridi vepatu smarantya bhartur adesham stanachcha shrik pravushruve. At that very moment, a shudder suddenly ran through the heart of Diti, the mother of Hiraṇyākṣa. She recalled the words of her husband Kasyapa, and blood flowed from her breasts. Purport. At Hiraṇyākṣa's last moment, his mother, Diti, remembered what her husband had said. Although her sons would be demons, they would have the advantage of being killed by the personality of God himself. She remembered this incident by the grace of the Lord, and her breasts flowed blood instead of milk. In many instances, we find that when a mother is moved by affection for her sons, milk flows from her breasts. In the case of the demon's mother, the blood could not transform into milk, but it flowed down her breasts as it was. Blood transforms into milk. To drink milk is auspicious, but to drink blood is inauspicious. Although they are one and the same thing, this formula is applicable in the case of cow's milk also. 24. Dinastasu spamayasu Uyaschavraja Keshavam Rusapagu Mano Umam Nadrishe Vasti Tambahi. When the demon saw his magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of Godhead, Keshava, and full of rage tried to embrace him within his arms to crush him. But to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. Purport. In this verse, the Lord is addressed as Keshava because he killed the demon Keshi in the beginning of creation. Keshava is also the name of Krishna. Krishna is the origin of all incarnations, and it is confirmed in Brahma Samhita that Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, exists simultaneously in his different incarnations and expansions. The demon's attempt to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead is significant. The demon wanted to embrace him within his arms, thinking that with his limited arms he could capture the Absolute by material power. He did not know that God is the greatest of the great and the smallest of the small. No one can compare the Supreme Lord or bring him under his control. But the demoniac person always attempts to measure the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. By his inconceivable potency, the Lord can become the universal form as explained in Bhagavad Gita. And at the same time, he can remain within the box of his devotees as their worshipable deity. There are many devotees who keep a statue of the Lord in a small box and carry it with them everywhere. Every morning they worship the Lord in the box. The Supreme Lord, Keshava, or the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not bound by any measurement of our calculation. He can remain with his devotee in any suitable form, yet he is unapproachable by any amount of demoniac activities. 25. Tamusti bir vinignantam vajrasarar adhoksaja karena karna mulehan yatatvastram marutpati. The demon now began to strike the Lord with his hard fists, but Lord Adhoksaja slapped him in the root of the ear, even as Indra, the lord of the Maruts, hit the demon Vritra. Purport. The Lord is explained here to be Adhoksaja, beyond the reach of all material calculation. Aksaja means the measurement of our senses, and Adhoksaja means that which is beyond the measurement of our senses. (26) Sahato Vishva Jita Hyavajaya Hari Brahmadgatra Udhasta Lochana Vishtrina Bhavangri Shiro Ruha Patad Yatha Nagendro Lulito Nabasvata. Though struck indifferently by the Lord, the conqueror of all, the demon's body began to wheel. His eyeballs bulged out of their sockets, his arms and legs broken, and the hair on his head scattered. He fell down dead like a gigantic tree, uprooted by the wind. Purport. It does not take even a moment for the Lord to kill any powerful demon, including Hiraṇyākṣa. The Lord could have killed him long before, but he allowed the demon to display the full extent of his magical feats. One may know that by magical feats, by scientific advancement of knowledge, or by material power, one cannot become the equal of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His one signal is sufficient to destroy all our attempts. His inconceivable power, as displayed here, is so strong that the demon, despite all his demoniac maneuvers, was killed by the Lord when the Lord desired, simply by one slap. (27) Shito sayanam tam akunta varchasam karala damstram paridasta dachadam Ajadayo Viksha Samshur Agata Aho Imam Konu Labhita Samstitam. Aja, Brahma, and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tusked demon lying on the ground, biting his lip. The glow of his face was yet unfaded, and Brahma admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such a blessed death?" Purport. Although the demon was dead, his bodily luster was unfaded. This is very peculiar because when a man or animal is dead, the body immediately becomes pale. The luster gradually fades and decomposition takes place. But here, although Hiraṇyākṣa lay dead, his bodily luster was unfaded because the Lord, the Supreme Spirit, was touching his body. One's bodily luster remains fresh only as long as the spirit soul is present. Although the demon's soul had departed his body, the Supreme Spirit touched the body, and therefore his bodily luster did not fade. The individual soul is different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he quits his body is certainly very fortunate, and therefore personalities like Brahma and other demigods eulogize the death of the demon. 28. Yam yogino yoga samhadina raho dhyayanti lingad asato mumukshaya tasyaisa daitya rishabha padahato mukham prapasyam stanum utsarjaha. Brahma continued, he was struck by a forefoot of the Lord, whom yogis seeking freedom from their unreal material bodies meditate upon in seclusion and mystic trance. While gazing on his countenance, this crest jewel of Diti's sons has cast off his mortal coil. Purport. The process of yoga is very clearly described in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said here that the ultimate end of the yogis and mystics who perform meditation is to get rid of this material body. Therefore, they meditate in a secluded place to attain yogic trance. Yoga has to be performed in a secluded place, not in public or in demonstration on stage, as nowadays practiced by so many so-called yogis. Real yoga aims at ridding one of the material body. Yoga practice is not intended to keep the body fit and young. Such advertisements of so-called yoga are not approved by any standard method. Particularly mentioned in this verse is the word yam, or unto whom, indicating that meditation should be targeted on the personality of Godhead. Even if one concentrates his mind on the bore form of the Lord, that is also yoga. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, one who concentrates his mind constantly in meditation upon the personality of Godhead in one of his many varieties of forms is the first-class yogi, and he can very easily attain trance simply by meditating upon the form of the Lord. If one is able to continue such meditation on the Lord's form at the time of one's death, one is liberated from this mortal body and is transferred to the kingdom of God. This opportunity was given to the demon by the Lord, and therefore Brahma and the other demigods were astonished. In other words, the perfection of yoga practice can be attained by a demon also if he is simply kicked by the Lord. Text 29. Etoto parsadavasya sapadyata vasadgatim punakati paistanam prapatyita ha janmabi. These two personal assistants of the Supreme Lord, having been cursed, have been destined to take birth in demoniac families. After a few such births, they will return to their own positions. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 30 on Wednesday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Arupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Our glories to the assembled devotees, our glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhakti Veda Vrinda ki jai. Jai Navadvip Dham ki jai, Nishangapali Dham ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju ki jai. Gangamai Mai ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai, Shyam Kund Radha ki jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai. Jai Hariram Kirtan Yagi ki jai, Jai Scientific Kirtan Yagi ki jai, Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Bhaktivedanta Institute ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Institute ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Uma Devi Dasi ki jai.
Jai Gurudev. Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu ji ki jai. Dandavad Pranam.
Dhanava Pranam Diri Hari Bol.